Welcome to today's video in our Raziaq Law Tube channel. We will discuss the Supreme Court's important judgment on the Waqf Amendment Act 2025. This ruling has significant implications for both religious freedom and property law in India. On 15th September 2023, the Supreme Court has given its interim orders and directions in the batch of writ petitions filed as against the Waqf Amendment Act 2025. So let us see the key orders, key provisions of the Act challenged in this Act, and also the appropriate directions passed in this Supreme Court judgment. Let us discuss all these things in this video. In its interim order, the Supreme Court has stayed some of the key provisions of the Waqf Amendment Act and also upheld the remaining portions of the Waqf Act. One of the main provision which are all stayed or the 5-year rule and the power of the collector to decide the disputes between the Waqf and the government property. The background of the case, the Waqf Amendment Act 2025 was challenged before the Supreme Court by multiple petitioners. They argued that several provisions of the Act are unconstitutional as they violate Article 14, 15, 19, 21, 25, 26, 29, 30 and 300A of the Constitution. The main issues raised include the deletion of Waqf by user, government control over Waqf property, changes in Waqf councils, and the controversial requirement of 5 years of Islamic practice to create a Waqf. The contentious provisions which are challenged in the cases are Section 3R. Section 3R was challenged in these cases, which requires a person to prove 5 years of Islamic practice before creating a Waqf. Then Section 3C, which is giving the government officers power over disputed properties, was also challenged. Then Section 3D, nullifying Waqfs on protected monuments, was also challenged. Then Section 3E, prohibiting scheduled tribe Muslims from dedicating their land as Waqf, was also challenged. Then sections 9, 14 and 23, allowing non-Muslims in Waqf boards and as chief executives, were also challenged. Then section 36, which makes Waqf registration mandatory, was also challenged. Then again sections 43 to 45, restricting donations, applying the Limitation Act and removing evacue property Waqfs, were also challenged in the above said cases. Regarding the petitioner's argument, the petitioners represented by senior advocates argued that these provisions are discriminatory and unconstitutional. They said deleting Waqf by user violates past judicial recognition. The 5-year practice rule discriminates only against Muslims. No such practice or restrictions were made as against the other communities, especially Hindus or to Christians or for any other community. Collectors' power allow arbitrary takeover of properties. Restriction on scheduled tribe Muslims are also unfair. Inclusion of non-Muslims in Waqf boards interferes with religious autonomy, and banning oral waqfs goes against Islamic tradition. These are all the points of arguments on behalf of the petitioners, and various petitioners and various institutions insisted to struck down the entire act, entire amendment, and they have mainly contended these provisions as if they are unconstitutional and arbitrary. As against the arguments of the petitioners, the government made the following defenses. On the other hand, the government defended the entire amendment. They argued that many government lands were wrongly claimed as Waqf by user. Non-Muslim members in Waqf Council ensure exclusivity and transparency, like what the government has replied to the above said contentions. Mandatory registration prevents misuse and protects genuine beneficiaries, like what the government made their argument. Again, the restriction on tribal lands are consistent with constitutional safeguards, and effective remedies exist through Waqf tribunals, so rights are not extinguished. So these are all the defenses or arguments submitted by the government. After hearing both the parties, the court observed, and its observations are as follows. The Supreme Court emphasized that laws enjoy a presumption of constitutionality. As far as the enacted laws are concerned, the Supreme Court took a stand that it shall be presumed that they are constitutionally valid. An interim stay can be granted only if the provisions are prima facie unconstitutional, arbitrary, or violate fundamental rights. The court carefully examined whether the petitioners made out a strong case for urgent relief. So these are all the observations of the courts. After making the above said observations, the Supreme Court passed certain interim orders. The court passed key interim directions. First, it stayed the 5-year Islamic practice requirement. Secondly, it stayed the collector's power to decide disputes over the government property. Thirdly, it froze all the appointments to Waqf boards and the central councils until the matter is finally heard. Other provisions of the Act, however, continue to remain in force, like what the Supreme Court has given its interim directions in the above said cases. Regarding the significance of a ruling, we can say that this ruling provides immediate relief to Muslim community on their major concerns. At the same time, the court balanced property protection with religious freedom. It is an interim order. The final judgment will decide the constitutional validity of the entire act. In conclusion, the Supreme Court has signaled that the Waqf Amendment Act 2025 raises serious constitutional questions. By saying controversial provisions, the Supreme Court has maintained a careful balance between community rights and state powers. We must now wait for the final hearing, which will shape the future of Waqf law in India. Thank you for watching. Please like, share and subscribe for more updates on important legal developments. Thank you. தொடர்ந்து நம்ம சேனலை பாருங்க. ரசியாக் சட்டம் அறிவோம் என்ற ஒரு சேனலும், ரசியாக் லா டியூப் அப்படின்ற சேனலும் இருக்கு. இந்த சேனலில் ஏராளமான பிளேலிஸ்ட் இருக்கு, அதுக்குள்ள ஏராளமான வீடியோஸ் இருக்கு. உங்களுக்கு சட்டம் சம்பந்தமாக எந்த சந்தேகமாக இருந்தாலும் நம்ம ரசியாக் சட்டம் அறிவோம் அல்லது ரசியாக் லா டியூப் அப்படின்னு டைப் பண்ணுங்க. நம்ம சேனல் ஓப்பன் ஆகும். அதுக்குள்ளே உள்ள உங்களுக்கு சம்மந்தப்பட்ட பிளேலிஸ்ட்டை கிளிக் பண்ணுங்கள். அதுக்குள்ளே உள்ள உங்களுக்கு சம்மந்தப்பட்ட வீடியோவை கிளிக் பண்ணுங்கள், பாருங்கள். உங்களுடைய சட்டம் சம்மந்தப்பட்ட எந்த விதமான சந்தேகமாக இருந்தாலும் அதுக்கு உங்களுக்கு தேவையான விளக்கங்கள் அதில் இருக்கும். அதையும் தாண்டி உங்களுக்கு வேறு ஏதாவது சந்தேகம் இருந்ததுன்னா இந்த நம்பரை கான்டாக்ட் பண்ணுங்கள். உங்களுக்கு சட்ட ஆலோசனைகளோ இல்லை வேறு ஏதாவது உதவியோ தெரிஞ்சால் நேரடியாகவோ ஃபோன் மூலியமாகவோ